Hi, I'm Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Gemini for July 2018. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Check out my new moon and full moon blogs to help you manifest with these powerful astrological transits in wonderful ways. Also, I have lots of other astrology and other blogs on that site. If you'd love to learn astrology with me, I may still have some slots available in my astrology apprenticeship program. So what's going on in this month of July? We have 2 eclipses. A third one in August. We have Mars retrograde, we have Mercury retrograde, we've got Jupiter going direct. There's a lot going on. So let's talk about the theme I have for you this month and for the times to come, which is called Manifesting Your Destiny. The reason I chose this theme now is because the way this eclipse is hitting, there are a couple of reasons. The way that this second eclipse in the series is hitting. So first of all, just want to remind you that in June, I did the report for the July 12th solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. So even though that first eclipse is in July also, to give us more time to focus on each one, and also because you may feel the manifestations for these eclipses much earlier than they actually occur, if you listen for my June report for Gemini, I talk about where that partial solar eclipse on the 12th will be hitting in your chart and what changes you can expect there. This reading is going to be focused on the eclipse, that's the second one, which is July 27th. It's a total lunar eclipse at almost 5 degrees of Aquarius. And then the third eclipse, which is in August, I'll talk about that in the August report, okay? We'll also talk about other things besides eclipses today, but that's the thing that's most on my mind because it's going to be bringing major trajectory changes and transformation. So all of you within probably the first 10 days or so of the sign, or the first 10 degrees or so, if you're watching for your rising sign, are going to have this eclipse hit in a very favorable, powerful aspect for you. It will be making a trine to whatever Gemini placements you have in those placements. So your sun, your moon, your rising sign, any other, if you have Mercury, any Gemini placements you have between 0 and 10 or so degrees is going to make this eclipse is going to make this favorable, most favorable aspect in astrology called a trine aspect with that planet of yours. Okay, so the 9th house, which is the energy that's being accentuated for most of you, your early and middle degree placements, you're going to be having this happen in your 9th house. Your later degree placements, you're having this eclipse happen in your 8th house. We'll talk about the differences there. But the story for you all is the same in this way. This is, and even if you're not in those early degree placements, this is still an ongoing story of what is going on for you, which is asking yourself the question, what you really, really, really want. What do you really want? We manifest from our desires. We are in a heliocentric reality, so the sun is at the center of our universe, of our world, and our existence. And so the energy of the sun is what's at the center of our experience. And the energy of the sun astrologically is desire. It's our wants. It's what lights us on fire with passion and creativity. We're here to create. We're here to be creators. Conscious creators as much as possible as we move along our evolutionary continuum. So asking the question, what do you really, really want, starts getting you thinking about it. And then the more you're clear about the things that you want, the more you can set in motion, and then the transits will facilitate this, the path to manifesting your destiny. The 9th house, which is very strongly accentuated for all of you, either way, whether you're early, middle, or late degree, even if the eclipse isn't hitting there, Mars retrograde Mars is spending a very long time in Aquarius. And that's because it's going retrograde mostly in Aquarius. So for almost 6 months, it's spending in this certain area in your chart, in this certain sign. And that's very much focused on the big picture. There are also pieces of other people and collaborating with them to bring this into reality. It's also pieces of your work and your career, so but it's centrally focused around the bigger picture of your life, the spiritual mission, the branching out beyond your walls, beyond your community, your word, your things that you're sharing, the wisdom that you're bringing, going out into a larger circulation. So, what do you really, really want? This is a really important time to start getting to a deeper level of that. And if you have already been on board with that question and manifesting from that, then certain things might be in a reevaluation process because of these retrogrades. You might be asking the question, okay, now I've created the things I wanted, now what do I do? Now what's happening? Now at this stage of life, you know, what is different for me and what do I want next? So it's a very powerful manifestation curve that you're experiencing right now. We've got Mars in retrograde, which can bring things you've worked on in the past into wonderful fulfillment. We've got these eclipses, as we mentioned, which you can experience the manifestations from them anywhere between 4 to 6, even more weeks before and after they actually happen. So the end of May, June, July, August, is even into September, is supercharged with major occurrences and events. So you might have a major change in how you see things, a major spiritual insight. You may come back to a belief system you have. Let's say maybe you were born or you were born into a family who was Christian, then maybe you've wandered from that, then maybe you'll return to that, or any number of different scenarios. There's like a jostling, a shifting, and in some cases a returning to some basics and some old ways of looking at things that are part of your foundation, part of your roots. There's also a lot of energy around being busy, like traveling to different places. Some of it can be far, you know, because the Sagittarius energy is international and it does have to do with different countries, different cultures, different languages. But there's also an equal amount of energy right now in your local sector, driving around, traveling around, being busy, doing a lot of things. There's also a strong focus on money and finances. So how you can relate these bigger picture questions into your finances and how your values are changing so that you can feed the answers of your changing values into this question of what you want and what you want to manifest. Like I said before, Jupiter is waking up, and Jupiter is the bringer of optimism and luck and growth and expansion. So it's been a retrograde for 4 months, so there's been a lot of work under the surface, you know. So if you ever pass by a building that's being built and it seems like they're taking forever to build it and they're working under the ground, you know, this is the under the ground foundation layer. You're like, that building is never going to be built, right? Because it's taking so long. But then once the bottom part is finished, the foundation, the building goes up really fast, whether it's a 1-story building or a 30-story building. It goes up really fast once the foundation is laid. That's what Jupiter's been doing. And specifically for you early and a lot of you middle degree placements, you've been experiencing this in the 6th house. You later degree placements, so the people later in the sign or later in degree for your rising sign, you still have Jupiter working in your 5th house for a while longer. So for the 6th house manifestations and Jupiter waking up, this has to do with your lifestyle, your diet, your health. So you could have been in a process of searching for health answers, health solutions, and information could be given to you. And what Jupiter wants to do here is expand your health. What sometimes it does, what is not that, is making certain things worse so that you can get to the root cause of them and heal them so that you can make it better. So you're in a discovery process. Many Geminis are in the discovery process with their health and their lifestyle and trying to figure out the best way to live for them. For some of you, it might involve some more restriction, where you've got to cut a lot of things out. But for some of you, this is going to involve expansion, where you had been seriously restricted in what you're eating. So, you know, the more we learn about food and how it affects the body and listen to our bodies, the more we start to see that there is a lot of foods that don't work for everybody at every different time. And if you've been what I like to call a food snob, as I definitely I've accused myself of before, where, you know, you don't want the GMOs, you don't want the gluten, you don't want the, you know, if it's not sustainable, and you know, all of these things, these restrictions that we have, at some point you get restricted down so to nothing that you could create nutritional issues where your body needs more diversity. So some of you are going to find that either through the healing process that is being occurring right now, or through your discovery of this being part of the healing process, you may return to more diversity in your eating habits, even if it is a small percentage of the time, or if you just start to include some more foods in. But there's something going on involving this issue of restriction and expansion with your diet and your lifestyle. So there could be more freedom coming, or there could be places you've got to get a little bit on track. This can also be involved with working with animals or pets, so expanding the energy of pets and animals. This, if you're self-employed, this transit going direct, Jupiter going direct, can bring you more work. If you are working in an office or working for someone else, you might find that projects that have been on hold have been moving forward. You might get more work, you might be more busy, or you might start to take on some different roles. So maybe your intention for your job was in a certain arena, and you might be getting other things sprinkled in there. And in most cases with this type of transit, even if it's more work, there is a very good chance that it will feel more fulfilling. Like let's say you're in a certain position and you want to teach or train others, then maybe you might start to have a chance to do that. There's definitely a lot of energy coming up around you as a teacher, you as a trainer, you as a person that is guiding other people. And that could either be as your job, if you're individually employed, or within your job if you're employed by somebody else. If you're late degree placement for Gemini, so if it's like between 20 and 29 degrees for rising or moon, or in the last 10 days of the sign for your birthday, then you will still have Jupiter activating your 5th house. The things that I talked about for the 6th house sector, for the early and middle degree placements, you'll be seeing those expansion points coming in the future. But for now, you still have a very strong focus on expanding, growing, clearing up issues, improving, enhancing things involving children and creativity. So anything involving conception, pregnancy, childbirth, child rearing, anything involving your kids, or working with children that are not your own. Also, this relates to romance. So any of your romantic interests or ways of being can be expanded here. There are astrologers that believe that one of the best chances you have for finding your true love happen when Jupiter is in your 5th house. So if you haven't found your perfect person yet, Jupiter could still be working to bring that person to you. So, and in many cases with the way that these transits are lining up, it could be a person you know from the past. So don't be surprised and don't dismiss somebody that comes back from the past, because Jupiter could be trying to have you do more work there. And there could be more for you there than you realized. Also, this is a house of fun. It's just fun for the sake of itself. So in adding more fun to your life, just hobbies and just things for creativity for the sake of it. It could be related to your business or your work where your creativity leads to money, and there's definitely a potential for that, but also just creativity for the sake of itself and art for art's sake. This also rules athleticism, singing, dancing, acting, anything that puts you in the center stage. So that's how the Jupiter in the 5th house awakening will likely come back into the picture for you. So Jupiter's waking up. We've got this eclipse that's favorable for your sign. We've got a lot of energy in your sector being busy, moving around, some things related to home and family coming up, and just overall a lot going on. Mars is in retrograde still, and that's giving us license to relax and have recreation and focus on, travel and rest. And I call it the shavasana of transits. When we have a personal planet retrograde, it's like that quiet integration time where all the things that you've done until that point just gel and you just enjoy the fruits of your labor. And it's not a time to really push really hard in the outside world unless you're very intuitively inclined to do that at this time, and unless things seem to be lining up. If you're drawn to do something and things are working out, then you've got to follow that flow. But if you're hitting roadblocks, then that's the universe saying, hey, there's some quiet time that has to be spent now, and just relax and enjoy what you've created. So if you'd like a written astrology report by me for you, you can go to cozybysweetstarlight.com, where I feature not only my written horoscopes that will give you additional information about each month, plus great reads for each sign, but I also feature my own and some up-and-coming bloggers that I'm trying to help bring out to the world on that site. If you are a traveler or you're planning some trips, you can check out my astrology travel site called astrologykissedtravelbliss.com. And that has monthly astrology travel reports so that you can see what aspects are specifically related to travel and other fun things on there, inspiration and such. So let's talk more about Mars retrograde now. I want to give you some sweet spots in the month. I want to give you some dates to look out for and some additional information on how to use this very active astrological period. So the theme of the month for all signs for July 2018 is 2 eclipses equals major transformation. We've been talking about these eclipses. We've got 3 in this cycle. 2 of the eclipses in this cycle are in July. The third one is in August. Whenever it's eclipse time, drastic changes, expected and unexpected new paths open up. Very often there's a complete surprise trajectory change that takes us in a completely different direction. And in some cases it brings to fruition things intended or planned, and sometimes it can shorten the time frame for something that we had originally thought would be further out, where we wake up one day and we had planned something for the future and all of a sudden it's here now. So this eclipse time is a very powerful time, and there are other things going on besides these eclipses. So we're going to talk about these astrological transits to note for July. Mars is still in retrograde. So Mars just turned officially into retrograde at the end of June. I have been talking about this for a long time because it's a very long transit, and there is a period of time before and after a retrograde transit of a personal planet like Mars that is very long, and you start to feel the energies well before the retrograde actually occurs. Okay, so we've been talking about this Mars retrograde energy. We started feeling it in May, it officially turned in June, and now in July we are fully into Mars retrograde. So this Mars retrograde is bringing permission to rest and to focus on relaxation and recreation and what I like to call comfortable productivity. It's not that you can't get anything done in Mars retrograde. You absolutely can. You just have to follow the cues. It's not a time to be over ambitious, unless of course, if you have Mars retrograde at birth, sometimes you can get more done during this transit than you do normally. But you would know it, because if you're trying to do something and it's working out and it's flowing really easily and you're not having roadblocks and you're not having frustrations, then that's totally fine. When you need to take the cue to rest and back off is when you're pushing and it's not working out the way that you wanted it to. So instead of just continuing to push, taking a step back is what is well indicated when Mars is in retrograde. So to second this notion, we have other astrological forces that are saying the same thing. Mercury is going to go into retrograde, and that's going to be on July 25th. And once that happens, it's going to further bring the past back into the present. So the shadow period for Mercury retrograde starts early in July. So essentially the whole month is very much in this energy of things coming up from the past. So opportunities from the past, ideas from the past, projects from the past are all very much indicated to focus on at this time. At the same time as all of this energy is going on, we have the eclipses happening, and the eclipses may bring change and opportunities to act on, whether you want them or are ready for them or not, or maybe you are. But since there's so much energy pointing towards the past, a lot of times it will be things from the past finally coming to fruition now. So it's totally fine to say yes to the things that come to you. You just want to have an awareness of maybe not having all of the information, maybe the project being different or turning out different than you think. And the big key here is to be the spider. Okay, the eclipses and the retrogrades both tell us the same story, which is be the spider. So spiders weave their web and they wait for the food to come to them. So that's the kind of time that this July energy is really bringing. It's bringing this just chilling out and waiting and seeing what comes to you, and then you can work with what comes to you as it comes. Okay, So we've also got 5 trines this month. Trines are the most wonderful harmonious aspect in astrology. So I'm going to give you some dates to watch here. Now, the dates that I'm going to list, I'm going to go into some detail about the transits, but if you'd like more detail about the transits I'm talking about or transits that I'm not talking about that are also occurring, then definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com, sign up for my free email newsletter, and you'll receive monthly written reports a month before the relevant time. If you've already signed up for my newsletter and you're not receiving my reports, they're either going into spam, promotions, social, or events folders in your email. So look for them in there and then transfer them into your inbox so that you get my mailings. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the dates to note. The first one, actually, I'm going to just list these sweet spot dates. They're trines, they're beautiful aspects where things can gel together in a wonderful way, where there's just little sweet spots. So in the days around July 5th, July 8th, July 11th, July 13th and 14th, July 25th, we're having this beautiful aspect of trines on all of those days. So look out for little boosts at that time. The next date to note is July 12th, and that is this partial solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. So for everyone, every sign, this can bring new things involving home, family, houses, real estate, anything involving home. If you're an architect, it could involve your work. You know, anything that involves homes or housing or family or childhood or psychology, childhood psychology especially. All of these things are very high on the list of potential manifestations from this solar eclipse energy. So in the days around July 12th, you'll especially feel this eclipse energy, but remember that you could have gotten news about this manifestation that may come in as soon as May, because we've got like 6 to even sometimes 8 weeks ahead of time is when pieces of the story start coming in for these eclipses, okay? But that is a date to note. I always try to avoid doing anything important on the eclipse dates. You just kind of want to try to be available for whatever shows up. On July 27th, the second eclipse is a total lunar eclipse, and this one is at 4 degrees, almost 5 degrees of Aquarius. So here we'll see a lot of activity along the lines of friends, friendships, acquaintances, social media, groups, humanitarian efforts, internet-based projects, large organizations, anything having to do with innovation or technology. So look for those things. And again, this stuff could come in months before or months after. We're moving along a continuum with these eclipses, but that's on July 27th is when the actual event occurs. Okay, so some dates to look out for that could bring some challenges. And you'll notice that some of the dates I listed for the trines that have some sweet spots, there are also some challenging aspects on those dates. So you may feel them on the same day, something positive happening, something challenging happening, or you may feel one day it's a little pocket of a sweet spot and the next day is a little bit of a challenge. It's always hard to be black and white about how these energies are going to manifest, but I just want to list them so that you can be aware. On the 5th of July, on the 9th, on the 24th, on the 25th, and on the 26th and 27th, we've got challenging aspects on those dates. We have some squares, we have some oppositions, and these bring pressure to change, basically, or put pressure on viewpoints or ways things have been done. You know, they're basically, I describe them as the pressure. Well, the squares are the pressure that creates the diamond. So sometimes if we have a diamond that we want to create in our lives or a vision for this diamond, we have to do something about it. And if we're not doing something about it, or we're not sure what to do, this pressure comes in the form of this square, and it either shows us what we have to do or makes us fed up so that we actually take action. So you might see that energy show up this month from those squares. The oppositions bring overstimulation. Overstimulation is when there's a lot of busyness in opposing forces in our lives. So We've got an opposition in Leo and Aquarius in the 5th, so that could have to do with your own creativity versus the group, like your own flow versus the group flow. And then we've got another opposition on the 24th with Venus and Virgo opposing Neptune and Pisces. So this can be a lot of push and pull about the seen world and the unseen world, the logical world and the abstract world, and the intuitive world, you know. So you'll see some overstimulation with trying to balance being in multiple dimensions at once. Okay, so the things to note for this month: lots of sweet spots, some challenging points, and definitely massive opportunities for change, massive opportunities for things coming to fruition. The keynote here is to try to not plan too much unless you're very intuitively directed, or unless it comes to you to be planned for that time and that's out of your hands. And if something comes to you, then it's definitely fine to say yes to it. Just be aware that there may be changes that are continuing to happen over the rest of the retrogrades, and just to navigate as consciously as possible, leaving as much flexibility in your arrangements as possible. Mars retrograde is continuing this energy of relaxing, taking vacations, taking trips, doing nothing. And in that space of doing nothing, this is one of the most magical things that I love about retrograde. So people say, well, you can't do anything in retrogrades, and it's totally not true. It's just not a time to push. It's not a time to go against the tides. But what you can do, I always call it the shavasana of transits, because in that few minutes of shavasana at the end of a yoga practice, that integration, that quiet time, is when the insights come, when the clarity comes, when the important pieces come, when the breakthroughs come. So this Mars retrograde, this month of July, is like this shavasana point where from that quiet space, pure genius can pop in and change everything. So these are the things that are most on my mind for the month of July. If you would love to learn astrology with me, check out my astrology apprenticeship program. I also have lots of other cool educational offerings on my site, both to change your vocation or just for your self-development and growth. I have my Astaria School of Practical Magic, which is a really fun way to work with the unseen realms and bring them into the seen realms. Definitely check out my hubby's offerings, B.R. Newman, at IamHelios.com, IamHelios.com. He's got lots of sound frequencies that help to balance out challenging transits and also help to empower you during the transits that we have going on. So definitely check his site out. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.